Do you ever feel like you are trying so hard to be such a good Christian wife and mom and friend, but no matter how hard you try, life just keeps getting in your way? Maybe it's financial pressure where you're like, I'm trying so hard, but it's another bill and another bill and another bill. Or maybe it is health issues where you're like, I'm trying so hard to do this thing, but I'm sick, and then the kid's sick, and then someone else is homesick from school, and it's just one thing after another. Maybe you're trying to read your Bible more regularly, but no matter how hard you try, it's like life is throwing another thing at you. I think this is something that so many of us can absolutely resonate with. We want so badly to be a good wife and to be a good mom, and we want to do those things, but so often life has other plans, and things just come out of nowhere, or maybe they're expected, but it just knocks us off our game again and again, and we have to get up again and try again and try again. And it can feel so unmotivating to be like, okay, I have to try again. When do I just quit and say this isn't working? And when do I just say, hey God, you're going to have to help because I am trying and I've got nothing left. Well, if this is resonating with you, you're going to love today's conversation. In it, we're talking with Charaia Rush, author of the brand new book coming out next week, The Myth of Bouncing Back. In this book, she's talking about how to get through hard seasons well, whether that's the really big hard seasons of a cancer diagnosis or a scary health condition or losing your job, or the really big things where you're like, God, what do I do? Or even just the day-to-day things that we go through every single day where we're like, God, I am trying and I don't know how to do this. To be honest, this is something that I deal with on a daily basis, as I feel like God has put so many dreams and plans on my heart. And I'm just like, but how? I have a toddler, I have 4 kids, I have so many things. How do I do this? I need the step-by-step plan. Please tell me, step 1, step 2, I want to know. I don't have time to waste just trying everything. I can just want the plan. Just give me the plan. And so often God's like, there's not a plan. You just keep going. Even when it's hard, even when you get knocked over again and again, you just keep going. So if you are like, okay, I need some encouragement to just keep going and some help and direction to know, am I on the right path? Do I keep going? When do I quit? Then this conversation is absolutely going to be for you. I want to give you a quick word though. We have a lot of deep questions that we're talking about throughout this conversation. It's a lot of things where unfortunately, in matters of grief and hardship, we can't give you the easy answers that we want to. So this may be one that you may need to pause frequently just to kind of put it into practice, to stop and say, okay, God, where is this coming up for me? And I'll actually mention that during the interview. Don't just listen to this quickly. I mean, absolutely, if that's all you have time for, by all means, listen to it quickly. But make sure you set aside some time, whether you pause the video as you're listening or you set aside some time later to think through, okay, some really good questions that we're going to bring up. This is one that you're not just going to want to listen to, but you're really going to want to stop and pause and reflect and pray and say, God, how is this going to work for me? Because that's really where the fruit is going to lie in this one. But I know you're going to love this conversation. Charaia, I am so excited to be talking with you today and for this conversation because I think it's one that is really going to resonate with a lot of moms who are just feeling the and another thing, and another thing, and another thing. So can you give us just a real quick introduction to who you are and what you do, and tell us a little bit about your book that we'll be talking about today?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share with your audience, your mother community. My name is Charaia. I'm a mom of 2, I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. I work for a local nonprofit doing communications strategy and kind of overseeing their storytelling. And then I also write on the side. My new book, The Myth of Bouncing Back, is all about kind of tackling this conversation around resilience in a way that feels less like a pep talk and more just realistic for people that are having a hard time persevering and getting back up and carrying on because they're tired of these conversations of you're strong, you can do it, and want a little bit more substance. So my hope is to provide specifically women with kind of a companion to help them with how to recover, how to get back up when life does what life does to all of us, which is knock us on our face. So yeah, that's what this book is about.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I actually want to read a quote of your book because as I was reading it, I was like, I was reading it on my phone and I'm like, I want to highlight this, but I cannot because it's
That's very
spelled.
mom-like, reading on your phone.
You say, somewhere along the way, we made ease our goal. We've made soft landings the standard, pain the enemy, and struggle something to be avoided at all cost. We've built a world where we expect answers to be instant and discomfort to be optional. If something is hard, we step back and define the path as wrong. If it requires too much, we let it go. And if we struggle for too long, we assume we're to blame for the valley our journey has led us to. But what happens to people who stop knowing how to fight? And what happens when we create a cultural understanding that pain is unnatural instead of necessary? And this just really resonated with me, maybe because of some conversations I've had in real life lately. But I think that there is really this tendency among all of us to just kind of have this assumption that, oh, things should be maybe not easy, but they should be easier. Like it shouldn't be this hard. We shouldn't be like, if we're following God's path, if we're following God's will for our life, if we're doing the thing, it shouldn't be constantly getting knocked down by another thing and another thing and another thing. Like we're doing the good Christian things, like we're going to church, we're praying. Like, why is this so hard? So I want to ask you, where do you think that this mindset or this belief comes from? Because I see it so predominantly in our culture. And I think it's one
Yeah.
that kind of slips under the radar that we don't even notice.
No, for sure. I think that American culture as a whole kind of gives us this idea that the harder the work that we work, the better our lives will be. Our pursuit of things is going to give us a level of ease. And I think that even in Christians' culture, like prosperity gospel and that idea of prosperity, it is invasive in Christian culture too. So we think like, oh, if I accept Jesus, if I do all the things, if I follow all the rules in the same way the older brother in the word thinks the same way, like if I do all these things, I'm gonna get this. It's like this formulaic idea of faith. And I think that it just comes for all of us. Like we all somewhere think that if we do X, we'll get Y. And that's just not what faith is. That's not what life is with Jesus is. But I think just American culture and just the culture at large tells us that ease is the goal. Ease is what we're kind of going towards. So I think it's something that comes at all of us. And a lot of the times our faith journey is stripping ourselves of that ideology and getting something that's better for us.
Yeah. I mean, when you say it out loud, like, oh, like
Yeah,
obviously God doesn't call us, hey, I'm calling you to a life that's really easy. Like when we read the
right,
Bible, it's very clearly like he wasn't calling the disciples like, hey, come live in the lap of luxury. And it's
right.
just going to be like the easiest thing. So, I mean, it's really clear. But I think the issue is that we don't realize how much we have this expectation, whether that's from the
Yeah.
culture or social media. I know a lot of times, as I'm scrolling my social media feed, as much as I try to curate it, like as much as like to be as healthy and
Right.
scriptural as possible, like it's constantly in there, like, oh yeah, I did this thing and it blew up overnight and it was wonderful, and like my kids are always perfect, and like it's just everywhere.
Right. It really is. And I think there's no shame in having that battle even. Like all of us want some sense of ease. And I think that that's very natural. That's very human. It's just where can we invite the Lord into that struggle and that wrestle?
Yeah. So I want to ask you though, um this idea that life is going to be hard,
Hmm.
I feel like we have to find a balance. And I don't think that there is a really good definition, but I think we need some kind of direction of a definition. Because if we
Hmm.
say, okay,
Hmm.
Christianity is hard, that can mean a lot of things, or motherhood is hard. That can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, or marriage is
Right.
hard. I've actually seen this on my social media, it was a while ago. But there was a trend going around for a while where people were like, oh, marriage is hard. Marriage isn't hard. Like, if you think it's hard, then you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, really? Like, that doesn't seem helpful or necessary.
Right.
But how do you define hard? That's not my actual question, but it's one thing to say, okay, motherhood is hard. And then you go into
Yeah.
motherhood and you're like, okay, this is really hard. But how do you know? I guess my question is, how do you know when you're like, okay, this is hard
Hmm.
because God has called us to hard things versus this
Right.
is hard because I'm making it hard on myself and there's like practical things I need to do to make it not as
Right.
hard.
Right. I think one of my favorite quotes was that we just all have to choose our hard. And I think when you
Mhm.
realize that we're all kind of choosing our hard, it gives us a sense of autonomy that like, yeah, this is hard, but it's the heart that I'm choosing. And so if it's the heart that I'm choosing, then how can I make sure that I'm equipping myself to manage this hard? Like singleness is hard, marriage is hard. Like we're all choosing our own hard. Having kids is hard, not having kids is hard. It all lends itself to a different level of struggle. And so I think that sometimes we do, in the same way, have an obsession with struggle that we have an obsession with ease, because we want to just be like, oh, like I'm holier because I'm just, everything's hard and I'm going through it
Mhm.
all the time. And it's like, like you said, like one of the ways that we find that balance is it's like, okay, this is the hard that I'm called to right now. This is the season of
Mhm.
hard. And I don't have to make it my whole personality. And I can also receive help in that area. And so I think a lot of, at least when as a mom, like a lot of us are just in the heart of like the day to day, like deciding what we're cooking for dinner, deciding how we're going to keep our kids entertained, taking them to all these practices. Like those are hard things. But when we know that like it's not the type of hard that defines us, it's the type of hard that God wants to show up in, it kind of softens that, and it allows us to not make it our identity and just make it a part of the journey. And so I think we all have a level of hard that we're choosing. And it's a matter of finding a balance by inviting the Lord into those hard things.
So, how do we know then if God is calling us to something that is hard
Yeah.
or if we're just making it hard? So, for example, like
Yeah.
I know a lot of people would ask, if you're in a really difficult marriage, how do you know if you're just like, oh, like God is
Mm,
calling me to persevere and it is hard, but we're going to
yeah.
fight for this marriage versus when you're like,
Right.
at some point in some marriages, like you can fight all
Right.
you want, it's not going to work.
For
So
sure. No,
there is a giving up point. Or with
for
children, you
sure.
can say, hey, I'm going to fight for my children. I'm going to fight. And, there is a place at some point where you say, hey, my kids are now of the age where they're just going to make decisions and there's
Right.
nothing that I can do about it. And I just have to let that over to the Lord. So how do we
Yeah.
know when God is calling us to fight? I mean, there's always going to be
No,
hard
that's a
things,
good question.
but when do we push and when do we give up?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I write about this in the book, just about letting certain things burn. And as someone who's walked through a marriage that I would have chosen that hard until the day that I died. A lot of us want to keep choosing the hard because we want to believe that on the other side of that choice to press in is like redemption and restoration. And so I think one of the ways for me that I had to identify, like, okay, this is a hard that God is giving me, calling me to, and this is a hard that I'm maybe forcing, is when my hard turns into managing somebody else. When I'm like saying it's hard because I'm in a place of control. I'm in a place where I want this specific outcome. Like motherhood is hard because it's the day-to-day taxing, showing up for our kids. We know we're called to that. We know we're called to like shepherd our kids and be there for them and teach them these qualities by how we live. But then we have to step outside of ourselves and be like, oh, now I'm operating in a heart that I'm choosing because now I want to control how my kids do things. I want to control the outcome. I want to control like what God is, telling me to let go. And so I think it's really a matter of just taking a step back and asking ourselves, am I calling this kind of desire to control the outcome, make it like working it out and working through the hard? Or is God just, am I in the season of like, yeah, my marriage is hard because, my husband communicates this way and I communicate that way. And we're wrestling through that because we're both engaging in the work. But if both people aren't engaging in the work, then sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, okay, maybe this is something that I'm just trying to do with my own hands. And I think we all can recognize when we're trying to make an outcome happen and when we're just in the rhythm of what God has called, the life that God's called us to.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we don't often step back enough to think about. But if we
Right.
do and have that self-reflection, like, am I trying to force this, or am I just like, God, whatever you
Hmm.
want from me today, like I am yours,
Right.
let's do this. Because those are two totally different postures.
Hmm. Hmm.
How do we set expectations that are at least somewhat realistic? I have said so many times in my life, like, I know my expectations are not realistic. Like, it's just something I know
Yeah.
about me. My family has talked to me about, not that specifically, but I'm like, I have no apologies. I know that my expectations are off the charts. And that's just kind of, I am not to the place where I am going to change that.
Hmm. Yeah.
But how do we kind of figure out, okay, this is something that is reasonable for me to work hard for because I want this thing, or I think
Right.
that God wants this for my family. And so
Right.
we can be reasonable versus when we're just like, oh, well, I have this expectation that my life should look this way because I see it on social
Mm.
media, or that's what I see from the perfect image of
Right.
everybody all around me that I think I should too. But maybe it's just not realistic. I mean, every family is different. We're wired
Yeah.
differently. different number of kids. Sometimes we have kids with food allergies or special needs, and some things just are not going to be realistic. But how do we kind of figure
Hmm.
out realistic
Yeah.
expectations?
Yeah, I think for me and for a lot of people, it's kind of just deciding what is the measuring stick. I think I'm a very ambitious person, but sometimes I realize that my ambition is not because I'm measuring myself up against what God is calling me to do. I'm measuring myself up against where I think I should be in life, where I
Mm-hmm.
think other people are, what I see other people doing. And it's natural. Like, I think we say comparison is the thief of joy, but comparison is the thief of calling, is the thief of peace, and it's to think the thief of like our sense of being able to settle into the life that God has for us. And so I'm the same way. Like, if I want something, it's gonna get done. If I want it to look some way, like, it better look that way. And God has to, confront that about me often. Because it's like, are you doing this? Like, are you running hard because I told you it's time to run hard? Or are you running hard because you see, the girl next to you, the woman next to you going this way? And I think when we realize that God sets our pace, he sets like the benchmark, then it's like, okay, if God is telling me to slow down, yes, I can look at these moms that are homeschooling their kids and they're in all these activities, but I have a resolve and I know that God has set this pace for me. And so it seems very like elusive, and I don't want it to seem like super airy, like, oh, you just have to know God's pace. But I think just trusting that where God has you is where you're supposed to be, and trusting that your pace is for you, and just changing the measuring stick. Like, just being willing to evaluate, am I ambitious because I'm trying to keep up, or ambitious because I'm trying to stay in the pace of the Lord, like keep in step with him?
Yeah, these are big questions. Anyone who's listening
Yeah.
right now, who you're like, yeah, listening along, like you are going to need to pause or you're going to need to like come back
I'm
later
sorry, I tend
because
to be.
no, that's perfect. And I love it. But I'm just like, I want to think through all of these things. But then we would just have this like 30-minute long pause and me'd be like,
Right.
huh, so about that. So many things to think through here. So I'm just encouraging
Yeah.
everyone who's listening who are like, yeah, this is a nice, interesting, like, don't just let it like fly by you. So you're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Like, take the time, like, think through right now. Like, when are you going to either, like, if you're in a position right now, I used to I haven't gone on a run in so long because I have a toddler.
Oh,
But I used to go on runs and I would like listen to podcasts. So if you're in a position where you're like, hey, I'm running on the treadmill or like doing dishes, and you can pause and you can just be like, hey, like take a minute and pray, like, God, like, what do I not see about myself? Like, what
mm,
wisdom do you have for me that like I need to know? Like, what is it in this area? And you can pause right now, like, we are not going anywhere. Like, pause,
yeah,
we'll be here.
we'll be here.
But if you're driving, maybe that's not a wise idea. So set some time aside later to like really honestly pray through these. So you're not just listening, but you're saying, God, like, search me. What is going on in my heart? Am I doing
Mm,
this because I am trying to control the outcome? Because I
mm,
think it needs to look a certain way because
mhm,
I want what I want for some other reasons. And it's so
mhm.
easy to get tangled up between like the things that we want that are good and godly, but sometimes we want them
Right.
for godly reasons. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
just because we want to be that good godly women so that people
Yeah.
think well of us. And it's really
Yeah.
easy to get those tangled. So I want to ask you though, how do we know the difference between sometimes it's hard and we just trust God that He's going to get us through it versus we need to take measurable action?
Mm,
And I know this all really comes back to hearing God's voice and discerning His will, but are there things that we should be looking for to know, like, okay, I just need to be still and let God do what He's doing. I just need to, pray and continue to pray. Like thinking about like in a marriage,
mhm.
do I need to just keep praying about it and just wait on the
Right.
Lord's timing? Or do I need to, okay, there's things that are happening that I need to step up and address and I need to action verb do something about this? How do we know when we kind of
Right.
get to that point?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And I am someone that just encourages like whole person faith. And so I think sometimes as women, we don't, because we're told we're so emotional, we tend to disregard our emotions to our detriment. And I believe that like God, he says that he dwells in us. And so like sometimes he can use our emotions to signal when something needs to change. Even if that means like the grace is lifted off of a certain situation. Like let's say we'll use a situation. Like, let's say you've talked to your husband about something and it's not changing. You've prayed about it. You've brought it to your girlfriends and you guys are all praying about it and nothing's really changing. There's still not peace. There's still like this internal turmoil. I think that it's okay to listen to how your body is responding, and let that move you to action and being like, okay, I don't really have peace. I've prayed, I've brought it to the Lord, I've sat and I waited. What can I do tangibly? Is it time to bring a counselor in? Is it time to bring a third party in that can help us, walk through this conversation? Because we are not like, we're spiritual beings, we're not just spiritual beings. And so sometimes we need those practical steps and practical wisdom to help us walk through the hard things. And we can't just lend the hard things to only spiritual tools. Sometimes we have to wade through the hard things with really practical steps of like, okay, something's going on with my husband. I've prayed. Maybe I just take him, grab a sitter, and we just go off and talk, because we have just been in parent mode. Because when you're in parent mode all the time, you just forget like how to be lovers, and you're just roommates. And so it's like, what are practical steps of like, I'm tired, but what's the hard that I'm going to choose? I'm going to choose to be tired and be with my husband and try to connect, or I'm going to just choose to be tired and then we're going to go our separate ways and repeat the same thing over and over again. And so I think just listening to your body and being like, okay, if I don't have peace about this situation, then I'm going to start taking actionable steps, and trusting that, like, if you've submitted it to the Lord, then you can trust that He's going to show up when you choose to take certain actions, whatever that action is. But I do think our bodies signal, our emotions are signals. They're not dictators. Like, we don't move based on them, or we don't submit to our emotions, but our emotions and how we feel can really help signal when it's time to try a different route. Like, we can't continue to do the same thing and expect different results and call that waiting on the Lord, when really we just don't want to move because we're afraid, or we don't want to do what God's maybe asking us to do.
Yeah. And that's always kind of my fear when we have these conversations about when do we wait and when do we move,
Right.
is I
Right.
would just hate for women to get stuck in this situation where they're like, oh, well, God is going to do all the things. So I'm just going to sit. And like, if it's His
Yeah.
will, it will happen. And if He
Yeah.
wants me to have this, then it will just magically, because I've seen this so much
Right.
online where women are
Right.
like, well, if this was God's will, it would just happen and He would just provide it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
but like, that's not really tracking with what I'm reading in the
Mhm.
Bible, where yeah,
Mhm.
He does provide it, but He calls us to action. So if there are actions
Right.
we need to take, sometimes it's
Right.
drinking more water. Sometimes it's getting off of your phone and go putting your
Mhm.
literal piggies in the grass. Like, I do this.
Right.
I will take walks around my neighborhood barefoot in the grass because I'm like, I just need to get outside and get sunshine on my face. And sometimes, like,
Right.
we really do need to do those things. But I want to pivot to the other direction. So for the woman who's like, okay, like, I have done all the practical things. There is
Mm.
nothing else I can do practical. Like, it
Mm.
really is up to God now. Like, I have like the end of myself.
Mhm.
I need God
Mhm.
to come through. And she has faith, like God has something sometime, may not be today, maybe a
Yeah.
season. We don't know how long the season is going to last. What
Right.
encouragement or advice would you give her when she's like, I'm just in a season where I just have to hold on?
For sure. And I would say, if like, one thing that I don't think Brittany and I are saying is like to disregard what God has told you. If you're listening to
Mhm,
this and God has made it very clear to stay, He's made it very clear to
mhm,
wait, then you hold on to that. And what I would say is that in your waiting, just continue to surrender what your idea of redemption and restoration is, what your idea of what it means to show up. I mean, we're right at the end of Easter, which I love Easter so much. And one of the things that I always sit with is just this: when Jesus came in with a donkey, and everyone was expecting Him to come in on a war horse.
mhm,
Everyone was expecting Him to come in and arrive in this glorious way. And sometimes we have to reckon with, what way or do we want God to show up? And surrender that, because He may not arrive the way that we want Him to arrive. And we're keeping our hope on like Him just arriving, not arriving a certain way. So I would say to you, like, if God's told you to hold on, to have faith, continue to do that. But then while you're doing that, surrender the outcome. Like, obedience is your
mhm.
business, the outcome is God's business. And so just surrendering what that restoration, redemption, arrival looks like, and just staying in place, like staying where God has you, staying steady in faith, staying steady when everyone says you may look foolish, and knowing that like God's going to come through, even if that may look different than what you're hoping it will.
That's great advice. Because when I think through so many of the things in my life over the decades, like there's been so many things that I wanted so badly, and God said no. And then what He gave me instead was so much better. Like there were people
Right.
that I knew that I don't know anymore, and places I wanted to go and things I wanted to do. And I'm like, if I had gotten what I wanted, I don't want that. Like I want what I have
Mm-hmm.
now. I mean, I don't know what my life would have
Right.
been like, taking all these different paths. But I'm like, I am so thankful for all of the times where God said no. It's not fun in the
Yeah.
minute when I'm like, God, I want this
Right.
thing and he's not coming through. But I have to
Right.
remember, like, there's so many things I wanted. And I'm so thankful that he said no. And he said, no, I have
Right.
something better for you. Or it's just not time yet because you're not ready yet and
Yeah.
you don't know that yet.
Right. No, that's so true.
I was actually reading the other day, I think it was in Luke. It's probably in Luke because it was just a couple of days ago. I
Hmm.
don't remember the verse, but it's about wherever I am in the Bible right now. And
Okay.
there was a portion of a verse that said something about Jesus and talking to the disciples. And it said that the disciples didn't get it because he had
Mm.
hidden it from him. When you were talking about
Oh,
Easter, it reminded
yeah.
me that he was telling them, hey, I am going to die. Like it's the part of
Mm.
Bible where he's like, hey, I'm going to die. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to like go, I'm bringing in the kingdom. And he's like telling them, he's giving them all these things
Hmm.
that now we see, oh yes, he's telling them exactly what he's doing. But it said,
Right.
he hid it from them, or it was hidden from
Oh,
them. They didn't know. So it wasn't even that they didn't listen closely enough. It wasn't that they weren't doing
right.
the right things. It wasn't that they like weren't spiritual enough. Like they were walking with Jesus every day and they made all
Good.
kinds of mistakes. But it wasn't that they weren't praying hard enough. It wasn't that they weren't
Hmm.
obeying closely enough. It was like, it's just not time yet. And so, no
Right.
matter how hard they tried, and no matter all the things they did, and all the discussions that they tried to have, no matter how much he bluntly told them, I am going to die, and in 3 days I will rise again,
Mm.
it says it was hidden, like they didn't get it.
It wasn't time for them to
So,
play out.
that was such an encouragement to me to be like, okay, like there are some things that I know that God has called me to do,
Mm.
but there's so many things where I'm like, but how? Like, but
Right.
how? I'm
Right.
just in a season right now. I have a toddler and I have really big dreams, and I have a toddler who climbs on my head when I'm trying to write, or she like doesn't nap. Today I had to like drive around so she would fall asleep in her car seat so I could put the car. She is sleeping in her car seat.
Yes.
She
Yeah.
hasn't woken up yet. So I'm just like, every day is another day of like, okay, I'm supposed to do this thing, but like how? And like
Right.
just this morning, I was reading about like the fishes and the loaves. And as I
Yeah.
started reading again, I'm like, I already read this chapter yesterday. I should be on the next one. But I was like, but I need to read it again. Because like every day I'm like, this is all I have. Like, I don't have more for you. And God's asking me to do
Yeah.
these things. I'm like, I don't have it. But I think it's
So
just really
good.
encouraging. And that's why it's so important to go back to the Bible when God
Right.
says, like, hey, look at all these examples of people who went through hard things. Um,
Hmm.
I know you've talked about Job before. Like, Job didn't know why. He didn't
Yeah.
know. He just had to keep going. And even the disciples themselves, Jesus was like, here's what we're going to do. And they're like, we do not know what is going on because it
Yes.
just
Yeah.
wasn't time to know. So I think sometimes that's just the
It's true.
beautiful in between that we're in that's
No,
hard. And
it
it
is
is
true.
hard.
Yeah. It's hard. And I,
But
even as you're talking, like, I
yeah.
just want to encourage women, like, sometimes we invalidate our part. Like, it is hard
Mm.
that you have big dreams and now you have to, like, drive your toddler around. And I think sometimes we're like, but I have, but they're a blessing. And it's like, yes, all those things are you, but I don't want you to, I think, like, you don't have to invalidate your hard because the moment that you are able to say, like,
Mm.
Brittany, like, even for you, like, I have all these dreams and it is hard. It's like God can come and show you, like, okay, I get it, but I'm here and there is going to be another side of this. Like, there's going to be a season where you can go super hard and you can go for all of your dreams and your kids are going to love witnessing that. But, like, as moms, I think sometimes we just invalidate our heart. And so it's like we're not serving anyone by doing that. And God wants to come in through our honesty of like, hey, it is hard. Like they can be a blessing and they can also be hard. And that doesn't make you a bad mom, doesn't make you a bad follower of Christ to admit those things. So yeah, I appreciate you being honest about that.
Yeah. And I think there's a seasonality too that I always try to
For
remember.
sure.
Like, yeah, we can
For
do
sure.
lots of things, but we can't do all the things all at once. So that's why I always like try to get to this like question of like, okay, but how much is hard? Like, what are reasonable expectations? Because like what I want to do, but what I'm able to do are very, very, very different things every single
Absolutely.
day. So we
Absolutely.
just
That's so
hope to
true.
make some progress.
Yeah.
But anyways, if somebody is like, hey, this is me, I am going through a hard season and like I am trying, but it feels like I am banging my head against the wall and I'm
Mm.
getting nowhere, they need your book. Where can they find you online and
Yeah.
go get your book?
Yeah, so my book comes out a week from today, actually, next Tuesday. I
So
know
exciting.
the timing of this. And then it'll be available anywhere like Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And then I write online on Instagram at Charaia Rush. And then you can also see my Substack link through there as well. So those are where you can find me.
And one last question for you. If there
Yes.
is a mom who's listening right now and she's like, okay, this is such a needed reminder. And she's like, every day, like I'm trying, but it is hard. and she
Mhm.
wants to grab a post-it note and write something on her little post-it note and put it on her mirror. So every day when she's tempted to quit, she
Mm.
doesn't quit. And she hangs in there because she reads this one little thing on her post-it note.
Oh
What do you want
gosh,
that mom to remember?
that's a lot of pressure. One little thing. I would say that you are blessed to get up again. Like you are blessed
Mm,
with again. And I think that the thing that makes life hard sometimes is that we're promised again. Like we're promised you're going to fall again. You have to get back
mm,
up again. And there's this constant rhythm of resilience, this constant rhythm of getting back up. And so I would just tell them, like, again is not a curse word. It's actually a
mm.
blessing because it means that God will continue to show up for you and God will give him your presence every single time that you utter this is hard. So, yeah,
I love that.
that's
Thank
what I
you
would
so
say.
much for sharing your wisdom and advice and perspective. And just, I hope that everybody listening is like, okay, I have some things to think through and pray through. Like I said a minute ago, like, don't just be like, oh, that was a nice conversation. Okay, great. Like, take some time, go back and listen again if you need to, or pause as you go through and really just spend some time in prayer saying, like, God, what is hard? What is hard because
Yeah.
it's supposed to be? And what is hard because you are calling me and I can do hard things and you equip me
Mhm.
to do those hard things. And I think honestly, I'm sure you would say the same. Like, I wish we had all the answers. I am like the numbered list person. I so desperately want to be like, this is how my brain works. I'm like, number one,
Mhm.
do this. Number two,
Right.
do like, that's what I
Oh,
want. Give
real
me
talk.
step by steps, but it just
Mhm.
doesn't work sometimes. And you can try all the things. And God's like, no, I got you. Like, you just have to hang in there. And it's hard and it stinks.
Right.
But
It is. But he's there. And we're all in
yeah.
it together. We're not alone.
Yeah, not just you, no matter what Instagram says. Well, thank
Yeah.
you. It has been so wonderful talking to you. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was wonderful.
All right, how much did you love that conversation with Charaia? I feel like there's so many different directions that this could go. Whether you're dealing with the really big, hard, heavy stuff, like losing a child or a cancer diagnosis, or just really bad marriage struggles, it can be really difficult to know, like, am I on the right path? Do I keep doing this? Like, at what point do I give up? Or if it's just the day to day stuff where you're just like, I am trying and this is hard. Being a mom is hard. Being a wife is hard. Sometimes for some people, it's not hard and we're happy for them. Like, yes, good for you. But for some of us, we're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this well. So every day is just another day of, okay, it's another day. I'm going to get up. I'm going to try. So if you are like, yes, that is me. I feel like I am in this situation. I am in this space of just banging my head against the wall. How does this work? Then I want to encourage you to go get Sharia's brand new book where it's so beautiful. That's why I wanted to read part of it on this podcast. It's such a beautiful book, but it's also really encouraging and it'll help you to really hang in there and get motivated and encouraged for whatever you're facing today. So go ahead and check that out. It's called The Myth of Bouncing Back. And then as always, make sure that you spend some serious time in prayer because that's really what's going to help you the most. Is just take that time and say, God, what am I not seeing here? What do I not know that I need to know? Like, bring it up. Like, God has all of the wisdom and knowledge in the universe. Like, God, give me some of that. Like, help me to know. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to not do? What do you want me to quit doing? Like, where are you calling me? Where are you not calling me? How do I keep going? Do I stop? Because those are questions that only He can answer. And unfortunately, like I mentioned in the Bible, it says, sometimes that knowledge is hidden from us. We don't always know. There have definitely been times in my life where just a couple years ago, I was like praying, like, okay, it's a new year. What is this going to hold for my family? Like, what do I want to do? Like, and I love all of those New Year's resolutions. Okay, what am I going to do this year? And it was just so weird because I felt like God was so quiet. Like, okay, I guess I just go forward with what I know so far. And very shortly thereafter, I found out that I was pregnant. And I was like, well, no wonder that He didn't tell me because there was this big thing coming that I didn't know yet. And I didn't need to know yet because it wasn't quite time. So now sometimes when I don't hear things, I'm just like, okay, well, you have something planned. I know that you have something planned. I know that you are working for my good. And maybe it's just not time for me to know yet. So in the meantime, I will just walk forward in faith. And you just let me know when there's something I need to know. So all of that to say, I wish I could give you step one, step two, step three, but unfortunately life doesn't always work that way. So for this one, spend some time in prayer. Ask God, hey, what am I not seeing that I should be seeing? What do you want me to do? What do you not want me to do? What do you want me to quit? Where do you want me to change or tweak or adapt? Or do I just keep going? And if so, just give me the strength. That has been my prayer, honestly, this morning. I'm like, God, just give me faith to keep walking. through whatever it is that comes next. I don't know. I don't necessarily need to know. I'm going to walk with what I know, and you just lead me and guide me the rest of the way. So that is my prayer for you today, also that you would just walk in faith closely to God. You don't need to know the whole path, but whatever He has for you, just keep walking. And as always, have to say, if you're not following along, if you're not subscribed, make sure that you do that, because we're going to come back again week after week and bring you some more of these really great conversations. Hopefully a lot of practical tips, but sometimes just some encouragement as well to keep going, because yeah, it is hard, but it is so worth it. And I hope that you choose the hard that results in you becoming the amazing Christian woman that God designed for you to be, because I do not want you to miss out on everything that God has for you. So go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you back here next week. All right, bye.